Hey, what's happening, everybody? It is I, the man, the myth, the mustache, Tim here, and I've got a brand new video for you. Welcome to part 6 of What If Deku Had a Magic Quirk. Please, sit back and relax because you are in for a treat. With that little intro out of the way, let's get this story going, shall we? Midoriya felt like he was floating in space, opening his eyes to see a nebula of stars surrounding him. He slowly turned, taking in the sight before a closer celestial body, a planet. One far different than the one he called home. He reached out a hand towards the planet miles away from his touch, only for a jerking sensation to grip him by his stomach and whisk him away. He could feel his breath leave him as the force pulled him at what felt like Mach speed. With a gasp, emerald eyes snapped open and the teen snapped up, gasping for air. He whipped his head around, taking in the white, sterile surroundings of the medical ward. The freckled boy slowly felt his heart rate slow, jumping a little at the sound of a voice.
Ah, good to see you that you've finally woken up, Mr. Midoriya.
Midoriya's eyes fell onto the figure of a nurse, a stern look on her face.
That stunt you pulled at the USJ has had you out of commission for quite some time.
What do you mean? How long have I been sleeping?
For about 2 days now. You were completely exhausted when the heroes finally arrived on site, only to see the villains gone and a single unconscious student surrounded by his classmates.
Midoriya could only sit there in shock at how long he had been out, running a freckled hand through his viridian locks. He tried to remember what had happened at the USJ, but all he could remember was that monster, the Nomu, and Shigaraki. After that, he remembered a surge of energy, and then black. What happened? I can't remember anything.
Sounds like a minor case of amnesia. I'll let the doctor know.
The woman wrote down something on the clipboard by his bed.
According to your classmates, you started flying and managed to subdue the villains before abruptly passing out and falling to the ground. Does that jog any memories?
Midoriya closed his eyes as he attempted to recall the events. A brief image coming through of lightning flying from his hand at the monster he had fought. Somewhat? He rubbed his temples. It's still blurry.
I'm sure it will clear up eventually. Perhaps it was just the fall.
The nurse placed the clipboard at the end of his bed.
Your mother has been called to let her know you're awake now. She should be here shortly. We'll run a few more tests to ensure you're feeling 100%, and we'll have you home in no time, Mr. Midoriya.
The emerald-eyed magician gave a weak smile and nodded his thanks as the woman exited the room. The smile faded as he looked down at his hands, focusing on his quirk. A familiar aura surrounded his hands in a pale green light. However, upon closer observation, the freckled teen noticed flecks of magenta encircling the jade energy. That's definitely new. Some mutation from the fight, maybe. Midoriya mumbled quietly to himself. I'll have to study this further. Maybe I could ask Kachan what he thinks about it. Eventually, his mother was reunited with him, encircling the boy in a tight hug, blubbering nonsense as tears ran down her face. The flow stopped as a tall man wearing a police badge entered the room. Izuku Midoriya? Yes, that's me. My name is Namasa Sukauchi. I'm a detective from the police department. I was sent to ask you a few questions. He pulled out a small notepad. According to the nurses, you are unable to fully recall what happened during the USJ incident? Yes, sir. So much of it was a blur. All I can really remember is this overwhelming amount of energy flowing into me. He looked down at his hands once more. I'm not completely sure where it came from. I'm sorry if this affects your investigation. I understand. And don't worry. I've already heard the sides of this story from your classmates. The detective wrote down a few notes before passing a card over to the mother-son duo. Please, if you remember anything, call this number. Of course, sir. The detective nodded before exiting the room, leaving them on their own. After a few tests from one of the doctors, Midoriya was presented with a clean bill of health and was swiftly discharged from the hospital. As soon as he arrived home, he saw a steaming plate of rice and katsudon sitting on the table, his mother ushering him to eat. He gave her a quick hug before digging into the meal, finally relaxing a little. Upon returning to school the next day, Midoriya was instantly bombarded with questions from all of his classmates, Bakugo's naturally being the loudest. What the actual hell, nerd? What were you thinking? Bakugo drove his fist into Midoriya's head, who was about to complain when he saw the actual worry in his friend's eyes. Not everyone was able to read Bakugo, but after all these years, Midoriya could tell. He sighed and apologized, receiving a scoff back, but knowing his childhood friend forgave him, he was just a little... very ticked. Quiet, all of you. Everyone's eyes snapped forward to their still-injured teacher Aizawa as he called their attention. We have much more pressing matters to attend to, something that is going to take all of your heart and soul. After the traumatic attack they had undergone, all the students turned pale, wondering what dire circumstances they were in now. A week from now... The mummified Aizawa paused for just a second, the atmosphere building. UA will be hosting its sports festival. There was a small pause before ecstatic chatting erupted from the entire room, excitement filling the air of being part of one of the most world-renowned events in modern-day times, an event that had essentially replaced the Olympics. A student raised a point of how soon after the USJ incident the festival was occurring, wondering if it was really that wise. The school board sees the sports festival as a way to show that UA is holding strong despite the attack. The scraggly-haired man looked at all of his students with a stern eye. I understand that a horrible event has befallen all of you, but you must push past it. This is a time to use what happened as fuel to become even better hero students. To push beyond your limits. Plus ultra. Inspired, the entire class responded in kind to the chant, before scattering into different groups to talk about the event. The bell signaling the end of their class took them all by surprise. Several students rushed to get their stuff together to go to their next class. However, as they opened the sliding door, they found their path blocked by a veritable sea of students. 1A stood shocked as some murmured, wondering what looked like the entirety of Year 1 was doing at their door. Tch! Isn't it obvious, you damn idiots? Bakugo stalked forward with a vicious glare in his eyes, making Midoriya push to try and stop the blonde before saying something stupid. They're scoping out the competition, trying to see how badly they're gonna look. A freckled hand slapped over the crimson-eyed teen, emerald eyes gazing into Scarlet with a warning clear. Stop antagonizing people. Wow, is this what 1A is? A bunch of overconfident showboats? Anger flared in Bakugo's eyes, matching in kind with a colder one from Midoriya. Just because you beat up a couple of villains doesn't make you some almighty gods. The speaker was revealed to be a seemingly tired, messy-haired boy who now stood at the front of the crowd. He stared at Aizawa's students, a clear look of disdain on his face. In fact, maybe you don't get just how replaceable you are. A smirk flashed across the violet-haired boy's lips. Let me let you in on a well-known fact. If someone in another class, say General Ed, attracts enough attention at the sports festival, one can transfer into the hero course. This, of course, means that one of you would be replaced. Some of the 1A students gained a pallid tone to their skin at the thought of having their position ripped away. Bakugo's eyes narrowed as he pulled off his friend's hand from his mouth. As if any of you worthless extras could even attempt to reach my place! Several people in the crowd recoiled from the sheer venom from the statement, before several began speaking up against the words. One going as far to claim that all of Class 1A was full of rude egotists, making several people agree. Midoriya sighed, ready to just resign at the fact everyone would be gunning for them now, when he heard it. A single statement from a blonde in the crowd of 1B's students. 1A's time for the spotlight is over. If you ask me, 1B should have been the one to get the attention. 1A are such spoiled... What was that? A roaring voice, seemingly speaking in multiple pitches at once, echoed around the hallway, scaring everyone. They turned to see Midoriya, hair floating and eyes completely covered by a green glow, tinged with purple. Do you think the USJ was some sort of game? The volume of his question made several students wince. We all could have died! The leader had a 5-point disintegration quirk that could have killed anyone in seconds! The teleportation villain could have let us all out of the ceiling and let us become nothing more than red spots in that building! And that
thing that they brought was built to kill All Might of all people!
As he stopped talking, the hall was filled with only a static sound emanating from Midoriya, as his whole body seemed to glow for a second before fading. Juniper locks fell to his freckled face, and his eyes returned to normal, revealing the sheer cold anger in them.
If you believe you would be able to handle it better than we did, I'm quite sure we could all gladly swap places with you on that day.
He turned around and grabbed hold of his best friend's wrist.
Let's go, Kacchan. You were right. These people are just a bunch of extras.
The duo left the dazed crowd in a huff, still trying to understand what had just happened. Many were pale from the sheer level of tension that had filled the air during the magician's rant. Slowly, they all went their separate ways, heading to their next class at last.
Damn, Zuko! I've never seen you snap like that!
Bakugo smirked as he slapped his friend on the back.
It was kick-ass! Why don't you do that more often when people piss you off? Because, Kacchan.
Midoriya took a deep breath to steady himself.
I don't plan on becoming a walking danger sign like yourself. Screw you, nerd!
Both of them chuckled as they continued on their way. Comfortable silence permeated the atmosphere around them, until a voice finally cut through it.
Hey, Kacchan?
What, abracadabra?
When the sports festival arrives, you better have trained like never before.
Intense green eyes stared into burning red.
Because we're about to show our whole year that our class is not all talk.
Sounds like a plan.
A sadistic grin overcame Bakugo's face as they finally entered their next class. Over the week they had to train, Midoriya delved deep into his spellbook, sometimes studying for hours at a time, his mother bringing him food to eat while he practiced the spells. He found spells of convenience, summoning, similar to his golems, even spells that would make a villain sweat. He practiced them all, committing as many as he could to memory. He worked himself to the bone every day, making sure to try and increase his reserve of energy in preparation for the sports festival. As the day finally arrived, Midoriya entered UA next to Bakugo, the two bumping fists at the gate. It was time to shake UA up. And that's our video for the day, so thank you all for sticking around. I hope you enjoyed it. Before I go, there's a little bit of housekeeping I'd like to go over with you. First, We the Celestials has many other channels for your entertainment and viewing pleasures. All the information you'll need is right below in the description. So please feel free to check out all the other incredible content and projects our team creates. Second, on behalf of We the Celestials, I want to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details are in the description as well. Give the writer and the editor some love, they do a lot of work here. But that's it for today's video, so thank you all for watching and have an amazing day. And as always, be kind to yourselves, be kind to others, and stay awesome. This has been Tim. Mustache out.